Before we open this file, if you want to understand the shadows where history is truly written, and if you want to see the operations that governments deny ever happened, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. The world is full of secrets, and we are here to uncover them. Damascus in the summer of 2008 was a city that breathed secrets. The air was heavy with the scent of jasmine, diesel fumes, and the unspoken tension of a regime that saw enemies in every shadow. To the casual tourist, the ancient markets of the Souk al-Hamidiyya were a bustle of commerce and history. But to the eyes of the agency, the city was a chessboard. It was the primary artery for a different kind of commerce. The silent, invisible flow of advanced technology moving from Tehran, through the porous borders of Iraq or via cargo planes into Damascus International Airport, and then westward toward the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. For months, the agency had been struggling with a phenomenon the analysts in Tel Aviv called the phantom convoys. We knew they were moving. The signal's intelligence, brief bursts of encrypted radio static, satellite thermal signatures of heavy trucks moving at odd hours, told us that hardware was changing hands. We weren't talking about crates of ammunition or simple rockets anymore. The intelligence pointed to something far more dangerous: advanced guidance kits, components that could turn dumb projectiles into precision-guided threats, capable of striking specific windows in high-rise buildings 100 miles away. The problem was the camouflage. The Iranians had learned. They stopped using military trucks painted in olive drab. They stopped moving in large, disciplined columns that looked like an army on the march. Instead, they had mastered the art of civilian mimicry. The guidance systems were being dismantled, broken down into innocent-looking components, and shipped in commercial vehicles. Vegetable trucks, furniture movers, municipal maintenance vans. We had eyes in the sky, satellites that could read a license plate from space, but a satellite cannot see inside a refrigerated container labeled fresh poultry. We had ears on the ground, listening stations that swept the frequency spectrum, but the enemy had engaged in strict radio silence, using couriers and burners that were discarded after a single use. We were going blind. We needed to get close. We needed a way to be on the tarmac, on the highway, and in the rest stops, right next to the targets, without raising a single eyebrow. The solution came from an unlikely source. It didn't come from a general or a high-ranking strategist. It came from a junior analyst in the logistics department who had spent a summer backpacking through Europe. He noted during a brainstorming session that there was one vehicle, and only one vehicle, that could loiter in a residential neighborhood for hours, drive slowly through busy streets, park near sensitive government buildings, and play loud music without anyone calling the police. In fact, people ran towards it. The ice cream van. It sounded absurd. In the sterile, fluorescent-lit briefing rooms of the headquarters, the idea was met initially with silence, then skeptical chuckles. An ice cream van in the middle of a covert interdiction operation? It seemed like something out of a bad comedy. But the more the senior planners looked at the sociology of Damascus and the transit routes heading toward the Lebanese border, the more the genius of the idea crystallized. Syria was hot. The summers were punishing. The culture of street food and evening strolls was deeply ingrained. An ice cream van was a piece of urban furniture. It was invisible by virtue of being hyper-visible. It offered legitimate reasons for refrigeration, a massive power draw that could mask the heat signature of high-powered surveillance equipment. It offered a legitimate reason for a large, boxy interior that could hide a server rack and a comms unit. And the music? The repetitive, electronic jingle of an ice cream truck occupies a specific frequency range. With the right modulation, that innocent melody could be used to mask the hum of active electronic scanning. The operation was greenlit under the code name Sweet Tooth. The objective was not to engage. We were not there to stop the trucks physically. That would cause a diplomatic incident and reveal our hand. The objective was to tag and track. We needed to identify exactly which commercial trucks were carrying the guidance kits, follow them to their storage bunkers, and map the entire network. We needed to know who the drivers were, where they slept, and who signed the manifests. But building a spy vehicle is one thing. Putting it into the field in one of the most heavily policed police states in the Middle East was another. We needed a vehicle that wouldn't just look the part, it had to be the part. If a Syrian Mukhabarat officer decided to stop the van and buy a cone, the machine had to work. The vanilla had to be cold. The chocolate had to be sweet. The cover had to be absolute. The selection of the vehicle began in Europe. We couldn't simply buy a van in Damascus. The paper trail would be too easy to trace. We needed a vehicle with a history, something that could be imported legitimately. A front company was established in Cyprus, a generic import-export firm specializing in restaurant equipment. They purchased 3 vintage Bedford vans and 2 modern Ford Transits from a liquidation auction in the UK. These were shipped to a secure workshop in a warehouse district in Rotterdam, far away from prying eyes. This wasn't a mechanic's garage. It was a laboratory. The vans were stripped down to the chassis. The challenge was engineering space. We needed to maintain the functionality of the ice cream dispensers and the freezer units, while installing a suite of sensors that rivaled the capabilities of an AWACS aircraft. The freezer walls were lined with lead and advanced insulating polymers, not just to keep the ice cream cold, but to shield the radiation from the signal's intelligence gear hidden behind the false panels. The most ingenious modification was the cone cam. The large fiberglass ice cream cone mounted on the roof, a standard advertising feature, was hollowed out. Inside, technicians installed a 360-degree high-resolution camera system and a laser vibrometer. The vibrometer could shoot a laser beam onto the side of a passing truck and, by measuring the minute vibrations of the metal, determine if the truck was fully loaded or empty, and in some cases, the density of the cargo inside. For the driver, we needed someone who knew the streets of Damascus better than they knew the lines on their own palm. We didn't need a commando. We didn't need a sniper. We needed a ghost. We needed someone who could smile at a checkpoint guard, hand him a free popsicle, and drive away with a terabyte of stolen data ticking away in the hard drive beneath the passenger seat. The stage was set. The chessboard was ready. But as any intelligence officer will tell you, the plan is only as good as the first contact with the enemy. And the enemy in this case wasn't just the Iranians. It was the unpredictable chaos of the Syrian road. The workshop in Rotterdam smelled of ozone, soldering iron smoke, and, strangely enough, waffle batter. We had to test the machines. The cover required that the ice cream soft-serve machines function perfectly. If the mix was too runny or the freezing mechanism failed, a frustrated customer could draw attention, and attention was the one thing Operation Sweet Tooth could not afford. The lead engineer for the project was a man we'll call Gideon. Gideon was a legend in the technical division. He was the kind of man who looked at a toaster and saw a potential radio transmitter. For the Sweet Tooth vans, he was in his element. He treated the Ford Transit like a living organism he was genetically modifying. The problem isn't hiding the camera, Gideon explained to the team one rainy Tuesday. He pointed to the serving window of the van. The problem is power. This surveillance suite draws 4 kilowatts. The freezer draws 2. The alternator on this Ford can't handle that. If we run the engine high to generate power while parked, the noise will be suspicious. Why is the ice cream man revving his engine in a park? The solution was a custom-built lithium-ion battery bank, flattened and spread out along the entire floor chassis of the vehicle, raising the floor height by only 3 inches. It was undetectable to a casual inspection. This battery bank could run the silent mode, full surveillance capability with the engine off, for 6 hours. They installed the sniffer. This was a molecular sensor originally designed for airport security to detect trace explosives. Gideon modified the intake valves to sit inside the front grille of the van. As the ice cream truck drove behind a target convoy, the sniffer would inhale the exhaust in the air wake of the truck in front. It was calibrated to detect specific chemical signatures, volatile compounds used in rocket propellant, and the specific anti-corrosion oils used on high-grade missile components. If an Iranian truck was carrying weapons that hadn't been perfectly sealed, the ice cream van would smell it. While the technical team worked on the hardware, the operational team was building the legend. A legend in intelligence terms is the backstory, the paper trail, the reason for existence. We couldn't just drop a van into Damascus. It had to belong to someone. It had to have a permit. It had to pay taxes. We created a fictional franchise, Snow Peak Treats. We spent months generating digital litter, Fake websites, reviews from satisfied customers dating back 2 years, business registrations in Aleppo and Damascus. We hired a local lawyer in Damascus, a man who didn't know who he was really working for, to file the permits for a new branch of mobile vendors. We paid the bribes, standard operating procedure in Syria, to the municipal health inspectors to get the hygiene certificates pre-approved before the vans even arrived. The branding was crucial. The vans were painted a cheerful, disarming blue and white, with cartoon penguins sliding down snowy mountains. It was psychologically designed to be non-threatening. When a soldier or a secret policeman sees a black SUV with tinted windows, his hand goes to his gun. When he sees a cartoon penguin holding a vanilla cone, his guard drops. He thinks of his childhood. He thinks of his children. He relaxes. But the most critical piece of technology wasn't electronic. It was the panic button. In the event of discovery, if the van was searched and the false bulkheads were breached, the driver had a red toggle switch hidden inside the hollow gear stick. Flipping this switch would trigger 2 events. First, an intense magnetic field would wipe all hard drives instantly, frying the data. Second, a chemical canister in the engine block would rupture, mixing with the hot oil to create a massive, thick white smoke, simulating a catastrophic engine fire. This would give the driver a reason to abandon the vehicle and flee, while the fire would destroy the sensitive optical sensors in the roof cone. By late spring, the vans were ready. They were shipped from Rotterdam to the port of Latakia in Syria via a legitimate cargo vessel. The manifest listed them as commercial catering vehicles. Our hearts were in our throats when the container touched the dock. Syrian customs officers were notoriously corrupt and nosy. If they decided to drill into the floor to look for contraband gold or drugs, they would hit the lithium batteries. We had a fixer at the port, a man named Youssef. Youssef was not an agent. He was a facilitator, paid in cash to smooth over bureaucratic hurdles. He didn't ask questions because he liked being alive. We monitored the port communications from a listening post in Cyprus. "Container 404 Bravo," a voice crackled over the radio. "Customs officer wants to open it. He says the paperwork for the refrigeration unit doesn't match the new regulations." Panic in the command room. If they opened it and started unscrewing panels, the operation was dead before it started. "Tell Youssef to offer the expedited inspection fee," the mission commander ordered. We waited. 10 minutes of static. Then the radio crackled again. Officer accepted the fee. He took a look at the penguin on the side, laughed, and stamped the manifest. "We are clear. Snow Peak Treats is officially in Syria." The vans were driven by local cutouts to a rented garage in the industrial outskirts of Damascus. There they sat, silent and waiting. The technology was in place. The cover was solid. Now, we needed the soul of the machine. We needed the operator. Finding a driver for a suicide mission, even if we didn't call it that, is the hardest part of human intelligence. We couldn't use an Israeli national, no matter how fluent their Arabic, no matter how perfect their accent, would eventually slip up. The cultural nuances of Damascus, the specific slang of the street, the body language of how you haggle with a supplier, these are things you cannot learn in a classroom in Tel Aviv. We needed a local. We needed a Syrian. We found him in the file archives of Unit 8200. His name for this file was Karim. Karim was 35 years old, a former mechanic in the Syrian army who had been discharged after a leg injury. He was bitter, intelligent, and desperately broke. But his motivation wasn't just money. His dossier showed that his younger brother had been arrested by the regime's secret police 3 years prior for attending a student protest. The brother had never come home. Karim blamed the regime, and by extension, the foreign powers that propped it up. He hated the Iranian influence in his country, seeing them not as allies, but as new colonizers. The recruitment was a slow dance. A business consultant approached Karim in a shisha cafe in the Medze district. The initial pitch was simple. "We are a foreign investment group looking to disrupt the local food market. We need a fleet manager and driver who knows engines and knows the roads. We pay in US dollars." Karim was skeptical but hungry. He took the job. For 3 weeks, he just drove a regular, unmodified van selling ice cream. It was a test. We watched him. Was he honest with the money? Did he drink on the job? How did he handle the police? He passed with flying colors. He had a natural charm. He knew how to joke with the traffic cops to get out of a ticket. He knew which streets were clogged at prayer time and which alleyways were wide enough for the van. Then came the reveal. The business consultant sat him down in a safe house, a quiet apartment in the Christian Quarter. "Karim," the consultant said, "we are not just selling ice cream. You know that trucks come from the east. You know they carry things that don't belong here, things that make your country unsafe." Karim stared at him. The silence stretched. He knew this was the point of no return. He could walk out, but he knew enough to know that walking out might mean disappearing. But more than that, he saw an opportunity for the revenge that had simmered in his heart since his brother vanished. "You want me to stop them?" Karim asked. "No," the consultant replied. "We just want you to watch them. We want you to be the eyes that the world doesn't have." Karim nodded slowly. "The trucks. They own the road. They drive like kings. It is time someone watched the kings." The training was intense but covert. We couldn't take him out of the country. It would raise suspicions. So we trained him in the garage. We taught him how to operate the hidden console. The ice cream machine controls had a secondary layer. If you press the flavor mix and cleaning cycle buttons simultaneously for 3 seconds, the digital display of the freezer temperature would switch to a tactical map. We taught him counter-surveillance, how to check if he was being followed, how to drive casually while your heart is hammering against your ribs. We taught him the jingle codes. The ice cream music had 4 different tracks. Track 1 was standard. Track 2 was recording mode. Track 3 was transmission mode, sending bursts of data to our satellite when the sky was clear. Track 4 was emergency. Karim took to the role of the ice cream man with a frightening dedication. He developed a persona. He wore a crisp white cap. He kept a pack of cigarettes in his sleeve to hand out to soldiers. He became a fixture in the neighborhoods along the M5 highway, the main artery connecting Damascus to Homs in the north, and the spur roads leading to the Lebanese border. He wasn't just a driver anymore. He was an operative. His call sign was Sunday. The first mission was scheduled for a Tuesday night. Intelligence indicated a high-value convoy was moving from the airport storage facility toward a Hezbollah transfer point near Zabadani. 3 trucks, covered cargo, heavy security. "Sunday, this is control." The voice buzzed in his tiny, undetectable earpiece, hidden deep in his ear canal. "Target is moving. ETA to your sector is 20 minutes. Position yourself at the Al Sabura rest stop. Look natural." Karim fired up the engine of the Ford Transit. The dashboard glowed. He flipped the switch for the soft serve machine, hearing the compressor hum. Then he flipped the second switch, engaging the thermal cameras in the roof cone. "Copy. Control," Karim whispered, pulling out into the dark, dusty street. "The ice cream man is open for business. The highway to the Lebanese border is a desolate stretch at night." The lights of Damascus fade into a hazy orange glow in the rearview mirror, replaced by the stark, unforgiving darkness of the anti-Lebanon mountains. The road is a mix of luxury cars speeding toward the casinos of Lebanon and battered trucks groaning under the weight of commerce. Karim parked the van on the gravel shoulder of the rest stop. It was a strategic location, a place where drivers pulled over for coffee, cigarettes, and the bathroom. He turned on the interior lights, making the van glow like a lantern in the dark. He switched the music to a low volume, a cheerful, tinny melody drifting into the desert air. It felt ridiculous. He was waiting for a convoy of hardened militants and Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC officers, armed with automatic weapons, and he was sitting in a box painted with penguins. His hands were sweating on the steering wheel. He wiped them on his apron. "Hold steady, Sunday," the voice in his ear said. "Targets are 2 miles out. 3 Mercedes Actros trucks, black cabs, no markings. Escort vehicle is a white Toyota Land Cruiser. Do not engage, just let the sensors run." Karim busied himself cleaning the nozzles of the ice cream machine. He had to look busy. A car pulled up, a family with 2 sleepy children. The father got out. "Are you open?" the man asked, surprised to see an ice cream truck at 11 p.m. on a highway. "Always open for the travelers," Karim said, forcing a smile. He served 3 vanilla cones. His hands were shaking slightly, but he masked it as the vibration of the machine. The transaction took 2 minutes. It felt like 2 hours. As the family drove away, the headlights of the convoy appeared on the horizon. They were moving fast, too fast for heavy cargo. That meant powerful engines or dangerous, lighter payloads. The lead escort vehicle, the Land Cruiser, screamed past, its lights blinding. Then came the trucks, massive dark shapes blotting out the stars. The roar of their engines shook the chassis of the ice cream van. "Sensors active," Karim whispered. The roof cone was spinning its internal camera, tracking the trucks. The sniffer in the grill was sucking in the air. The vibrometer laser pulsed invisible beams against the side of the passing containers. Beep, beep, beep. The display on the freezer temperature gauge flickered. Signature detected. Chemical match. Ammonium perchlorate. Solid fuel propellant. "We have them," Control said, the voice tight with excitement. "Good capture, Sunday. Stay put. Do not follow yet. Let them get ahead." But then, the brake lights of the last truck in the convoy flared red. The convoy was slowing down. The Land Cruiser in the lead whipped a U-turn, tires screeching on the asphalt, and came racing back toward the rest stop. Karim's stomach dropped. Had they seen the laser? Did they pick up the electronic signature? The Land Cruiser skidded to a halt in front of the ice cream van, blocking Karim's exit. 4 men jumped out. They weren't wearing uniforms, but they had the bearded, disciplined look of Hezbollah security, or perhaps IRGC. They carried AK-47s. Karim froze. His hand hovered inches from the gear stick, near the panic button that would destroy the van. One of the men walked up to the serving window. He looked at the penguins. He looked at Karim. He looked at the ice cream machine. The silence was absolute. The desert wind hissed. The man leaned in, his face hard, eyes scanning the interior. He sniffed the air. He was looking for threats. He was looking for anything out of place. "You," the gunman said, his voice rough. "Yes, sir?" Karim answered, his voice trembling just the right amount for a terrified civilian. "Do you have chocolate?" Karim blinked. Yes. Yes, I have chocolate." The gunman turned to his comrades. "Get the commander. He wants something cold." The tension broke, but only slightly. For the next 5 minutes, Karim served ice cream to the security detail of a high-value weapons convoy. He handed a chocolate swirl to a man who was likely responsible for moving missiles that could level a city block. As the commander took his cone, he looked Karim in the eye. "You are out late." "The rent is high, sir," Karim said, using the universal excuse of the working man. "I go where the customers are." The commander nodded, licked his ice cream, and threw a crumpled bill on the counter. "Leave this place. The road is not safe tonight." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." The men piled back into the Land Cruiser. The convoy roared back to life and disappeared into the darkness toward the border. Karim slumped against the back wall of the van, hyperventilating. "Sunday status?" Control asked. "Status?" Karim laughed, a jagged, hysterical sound. "Status is, they tipped me $5. "Data received," Control said. "We have the chemical signatures. We have the license plates. We have the faces. Go home, Sunday. You did good." Karim put the van in gear. He was alive, but he knew this was just the beginning. The convoy had been the easy part. The real game, the game of cat and mouse across the entire country, was just starting. And next time, they might not just want chocolate. The success of the first intercept changed the dynamic of the operation. We weren't just guessing anymore. We were mapping. The data from Karim's van provided a fingerprint of the convoy, the specific heat signature of the truck's engines, the radio frequencies the escorts used for short-range chatter, and crucially, the route patterns. We learned that the Phantom convoys operated on a relay system. They didn't drive straight from the airport to the border. They stopped at safe farms, innocuous agricultural compounds scattered around the Ghouta countryside. There, the cargo would be swapped to different trucks, drivers would change, and the trail would go cold for satellite surveillance. To beat this, we needed to expand. One van wasn't enough. We activated the second van, call sign Sherbet, driven by another asset, a younger cousin of Karim whom he had vetted. We deployed them in a pincer movement. Sunday would patrol the southern approaches, while Sherbet would cover the northern exits of Damascus. The weeks turned into months. The routine settled in, but routine is the enemy of security. The Iranians were becoming paranoid. A shipment had been struck mysteriously in the open desert near the Iraqi border, an airstrike that no one claimed responsibility for. The IRGC knew they had a leak. They began changing their tactics. They started using decoys. It was a Tuesday afternoon in the bustling district of Dumar. Karim was parked near a park, selling slushies to a group of teenagers. His dashboard display pinged. A convoy was approaching. 3 trucks, identical to the ones he had scanned before. "Control, I have visual." Karim muttered, pretending to count change. "Copy, Sunday. Scan them." Karim activated the laser vibrometer. The invisible beam hit the side of the first truck, then the second, then the third. The data came back instantly. Vibration analysis, hollow echo, density low, payload empty. "They are empty, Control," Karim whispered. "It's a ghost run." "Hold position," Control ordered. "If they are running empties on the main road, the real package is on a secondary route. Scan the side streets." Karim couldn't move. He had a line of customers. To leave now would cause a scene. He had to wait. The empty trucks rumbled past, a loud, aggressive distraction. 10 minutes later, a single battered dump truck, carrying a load of gravel, drove slowly past the park on the other side of the street. It looked like municipal waste management. It was dirty, loud, and completely ignored by everyone. But the sniffer in Karim's grill went haywire, alert. Chemical trace, hydrazine, high concentration, hydrazine, rocket fuel, highly unstable, highly toxic. "Control, the dump truck," Karim said, his voice low. "The gravel is fake. The fuel is underneath. Can you follow?" "Negative. I'm boxed in by traffic." "Don't follow," Control said. "We have the tag. We'll pick him up with the bird." A high-altitude drone orbiting at 30,000 feet locked onto the thermal signature of the dump truck. We tracked it for 4 hours. It didn't go to the border. It went into the heart of a residential district in Damascus, pulling into the underground parking garage of a half-finished shopping mall. This was a nightmare scenario. They were storing volatile rocket fuel and guidance systems underneath a civilian population center. If that garage went up, it would take 1,000 people with it. We couldn't strike. The collateral damage would be catastrophic. The rules of engagement were strict. No civilian mass casualties. We had to wait for them to move it again. The waiting game began. For 3 days, Karim parked his van 2 blocks away from the mall, playing the same 4 songs, watching the entrance. He slept in the van. He ate unsold ice cream. He watched the Mukhabarat patrols circle the block. On the 4th night, movement. The dump truck emerged, but it had been repainted. It was now blue, marked as a water tanker. "They are moving," Karim alerted. "Stick with him, Sunday, but keep your distance. He has a tail." The tail was a counter-surveillance car trailing the truck to spot anyone following. Karim knew the drill. He didn't follow directly behind. He drove parallel, using side streets, calculating the truck's speed and intercepting it at key intersections to re-establish the electronic lock. They were heading west, toward the mountains, toward the border tunnels. Technology is perfect until it isn't. We were 5 miles outside of Damascus, on the old mountain road that winds toward Zabadani. It was pitch black. Karim was trailing the water tanker by a mile, keeping the electronic signal just within range of his passive receivers. Then the van died. Not the engine. The engine was fine. The system died. The screens on the dashboard went black. The music stopped mid-jingle. The sensors powered down. "Control, Control." Karim tapped his earpiece. Static. Total electronic failure. The extreme heat of the Syrian summer, combined with the heat generated by the massive server rack in the insulated floor, had tripped the thermal failsafe. The system had overheated and shut down to prevent a fire. Karim was flying blind. He had no comms with Tel Aviv. He had no tracking data on the target. He was just a man in an ice cream van in the middle of nowhere. He had a choice: abort and return to base, hoping the truck would be picked up by someone else, or trust his eyes. Karim thought of his brother. He thought of the arrogance of the men who had stopped him at the rest stop. He slammed his hand on the dashboard in frustration, then shifted gears. He floored it. The Ford Transit, heavy with batteries and lead shielding, groaned as he pushed it up the mountain road. He had to get visual contact. He rounded a hairpin turn and saw taillights ahead. The water tanker. It was moving slowly, struggling with the gradient. But there was something else. A checkpoint ahead. A temporary flying checkpoint set up by the Syrian Army 4th Division, the Praetorian Guard of the regime. The tanker was waved through. They had the right paperwork or the right bribe. Karim pulled up. A soldier shone a flashlight into his face. "Ice cream?" the soldier asked, confused. "Here? Now?" "I have a delivery," Karim lied, his heart hammering. "A wedding in Zabadani. They ran out of dessert. The bride is furious. You know how it is." The soldier laughed. "A wedding at 2:00 a.m.? It is a very good party." Karim smiled weakly. "Free cones for you and your men if you let me pass. The bride is waiting." The soldier hesitated. He walked around the van. He tapped the side panels. If he asked to open the back, he would see the server racks, currently dark and silent, but obviously not ice cream. "Open the back," the soldier commanded. Karim's blood ran cold. "Sir, if I open the back, the cold air escapes. The ice cream melts. The bride." "Open the back!" the soldier shouted, unslinging his rifle. Karim reached for the latch. He was calculating the time it would take to hit the panic button. He would die here. He knew it. He gripped the handle. Click. He opened the door. The soldier shone his light inside. The back of the van was filled with boxes, cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling. "What is this?" the soldier asked. "Cones, napkins, toppings," Karim said. The server rack was behind a false wall behind the boxes. We had designed the interior with a depth illusion. The van looked fully loaded, but the cargo space was actually 3 feet shallower than it should be. The boxes were a facade. The soldier poked a box. It fell over. A cascade of sugar cones spilled onto the floor. "You are making a mess," the soldier grumbled. He lost interest. He didn't see the computers. He saw a clumsy delivery driver. "Go, fix your mess. Get to the wedding." Karim slammed the door, his knees shaking so hard he could barely work the clutch. He drove through the checkpoint. He was alive, but he had lost the tanker. The delay had cost him 5 minutes. In the mountains, 5 minutes is an eternity. He drove for another mile, the silence of the van deafening without the comms. Then, a miracle, or physics. The cool mountain air, flowing through the vents, lowered the ambient temperature of the van. The thermal failsafe reset. Beep. The screens flickered to life. The radio crackled. "Sunday, Sunday, do you copy? We lost your heartbeat," Control shouted. "I'm here," Karim gasped. "System overheated. I'm back. I lost visual on the target." "We have him," Control said. He didn't go to Zabadani. He turned off. "He's on the smuggling track to the Wadi. You need to intercept him at the crossroads." Karim checked his fuel. Low. He checked his nerve. Lower. "On my way," he said. The chase was back on, but the Iranians were getting close to the border. Once they crossed into Lebanon, they were in Hezbollah land. We had to tag the destination before they crossed. We needed to know where the handoff point was. The Wadi was a smuggler's paradise, a dry riverbed that snaked through the limestone hills, offering natural cover from the road above. The water tanker was moving slowly now, navigating the rough terrain. Karim couldn't take the van down there. The suspension wouldn't survive. He parked on the ridge overlooking the valley. He engaged the long-range audio mode. The van systems extended a directional microphone from the roof cone. He wasn't looking for images now. He was listening. Voices. "Transfer is in 10 minutes. Is the reception committee ready?" "Ready. The cave is open." The cave. This was the intelligence goldmine. They weren't just driving to a warehouse. They were putting the weapons into underground bunkers, natural or man-made caves in the mountainside, impervious to standard airstrikes. Karim panned the camera, zooming in on the darkness of the valley floor. The thermal imaging cut through the night. He saw the tanker stop. He saw another group of vehicles emerge from the rock face itself, a camouflaged entrance opening up. "Control, I see it," Karim whispered. "Grid reference 44 Alpha. It's a tunnel complex." We see it Sunday. We are recording. Keep the laser on the entrance. We need the dimensions. Karim held the lock. The tanker drove into the mountain. The doors closed. The desert was empty again. Target secured, Control said. Great work, Sunday. Return to base. Immediately. As Karim turned the van around, he saw headlights in his rearview mirror. Not from the valley, from the road behind him. A patrol car. No lights, just the silhouette. They had been watching him while he was watching the valley. The chase that followed wasn't high speed. An ice cream van cannot outrun a patrol car. It was a chase of wits. Karim knew he couldn't lead them back to the garage. That would blow the whole operation. He had to lose them, or he had to ditch the van. Control, I have a tale. Syrian military intelligence. They are suspicious. Can you lose them in the village? I'll try. Karim drove into the village of Bludan. It was a maze of narrow streets. He killed the lights. He used the handbrake to slide around corners. The van was heavy, sluggish. The patrol car was gaining. He saw an alleyway. Too narrow for a car? Maybe. He jammed the van into the gap. The mirrors scraped the stone walls. Sparks flew. He wedged the van into a small courtyard behind a bakery. He killed the engine. Silence. The patrol car roared past the alley entrance, missing him by seconds. Karim sat in the dark, breathing the smell of old stone and yeast. He waited an hour. They didn't come back. He had escaped, but the cover was fraying. The ice cream van had been seen in too many wrong places at too many wrong times. The phantom drivers were starting to talk about the phantom ice cream man. We had the data on the bunkers. We had the chemical signatures. The mission was a success. But we knew that Operation Sweet Tooth was living on borrowed time. The Iranians are not stupid. They would put the pieces together. Sunday, Control said softly. It's time to close the shop, park the van, walk away. We have an extraction team waiting for you in Damascus. Karim looked at the steering wheel. He looked at the penguin sticker on the dashboard. He had grown fond of this absurd machine. One last run, Karim said. I have to return the inventory. It would be a shame to waste the chocolate. He was joking, but his voice was heavy. He knew his life as Karim the mechanic was over. He was about to become a refugee, a ghost in a foreign land. He drove the van back to Damascus as the sun rose over the desert, painting the sky in colors of fire and blood. He parked it in the garage, wiped his fingerprints, and left the keys on the seat. He walked out into the morning heat, just another man in a city of secrets. 2 days later, the water tanker bunker in the mountains experienced a structural failure. A massive explosion, attributed to a gas leak by the Syrian state media, collapsed the tunnel entrance and destroyed the contents inside. The secondary explosions, the distinct crackle of solid rocket fuel cooking off, continued for hours. The phantom convoys had been touched by the ice cream man. But the story didn't end there. Because in the world of intelligence, a good idea is never thrown away. It is just repurposed. And the Iranians were about to learn that in this war, anything, a taxi, a garbage truck, a vendor's cart, could be watching.